the silent witness. The basement was cold, damp, and smelled faintly of mildew, but that was nothing compared to the smell of fear that clung to the air now. I stood just outside the door, listening to the soft, shuffling sounds from within. He had been down there for days, the poor soul. At first he was confused, groggy, unsure of what was happening. The dementia had taken hold of him years ago, and now it was just a matter of time before his mind completely unraveled. It made him the perfect target. The old ones, they're so easy. They're lost in their own memories, their own worlds, and it's so simple to twist their reality, to manipulate them into doing whatever I want. The cops, they wouldn't believe him. They never do. They chalk it up to delirium, to confusion. After all, it's not like he's lucid enough to describe me, is he? Not clearly. And even if he could escape, even if he could find the strength to break free of this place, there would be nothing he could say that anyone would believe. I smirked to myself, a wicked thrill of satisfaction filling me. The plan was perfect. He would never get the chance to speak. He would never find anyone to help him. Even if he managed to break the lock, even if he managed to crawl out of that basement, he wouldn't be able to tell anyone who I am. He wouldn't be able to find his way to the front door, much less to a phone. And even if by some miracle he did manage to tell someone, they'd never take him seriously. The confusion in his voice would be dismissed as another symptom of his fading mind. People like him, they're nothing but a nuisance. Half the time, they don't even remember their own names. What chance did he have of remembering mine? I stepped back from the door and leaned against the wall, savoring the sense of control. The house was quiet, the kind of quiet that makes you feel like you own everything. The world outside, the world of people who aren't like him, was so far removed from this house, from the basement, from where I controlled everything. I could hear him now, mumbling softly from behind the door, his voice broken and strained. His words didn't make much sense. They never did anymore. There was a tinge of panic in his tone, but it was far too late for him to change anything. At first, he had tried to talk to me, tried to make sense of things, but the truth is, even I couldn't remember what I had told him. I'd changed the story so many times that it didn't matter anymore. One moment I was his niece, the next I was his neighbor. His memory was so fragmented that it barely registered. It didn't matter what story I told him. Each one was just as believable as the last. In the end, it would all blend together in his foggy mind. It always did. I walked over to the basement door, not making a sound. I waited for a few moments, letting him stew in his own disorientation, before I finally opened it. The dim light from the hallway spilled into the basement, illuminating his frail, hunched figure sitting in the corner. His hands were shaking, his hair wild and matted from days of confusion, but he was still alive, still breathing. "Hello, Mr. Jacob," I said, my voice calm, almost sweet. He turned toward me slowly, squinting as if trying to recognize me, but his eyes were clouded with fog. "Who are you?" he rasped, his voice barely a whisper. "Where am I? I, I was, I was just, I don't remember." I crouched down in front of him, placing the edge of my hand gently on his shoulder, just as I had so many times before. "You're fine, Mr. Jacobs. Don't worry. You're just confused. Let me help you." I could see the confusion flash in his eyes as he tried to focus. I could almost feel the panic rising in him. He had no idea what was really happening. "Please, please let me go," he pleaded weakly. I need to find my wife. She's waiting for me." His voice cracked, but the words held no weight. His wife had been dead for years. He was alone. And here, in this place, he was trapped. Trapped in his own confusion, in his own frailty. I smiled, a quiet satisfaction filling me as I watched him unravel. He didn't know who I was. He didn't remember what had happened to him. He didn't even realize that, for all intents and purposes, he had already lost. But I knew what this was, what he was, what I was. I reached down and gently took his hand, guiding him toward the chair by the wall. His body trembled in my grip, but he didn't resist. He had forgotten how to resist. "Let's just sit down for a moment," I said softly, my voice a lullaby to his fractured mind. "You're safe here. Everything's fine." I turned away, walking back to the door. He couldn't see me anymore. His mind was too far gone. He would forget who I was as soon as I left. And soon enough, he would forget the room, the walls, the floor beneath him. As I closed the door behind me, I leaned against it for a moment, breathing in the silence. He would never leave. Not like that. He would never tell anyone what had happened. He wouldn't even remember trying. And that was the beauty of it.